Coming up on show 803. So Tesla Model Y customers in Canada have been told to prepare for delivery. Stick around, I'll tell you more. Plus on the podcast today, how also in Canada, EV sales are going through the roof right now. Audi's plug-in hybrid range expands. ABB partners with somebody else for marine EV propulsion. And battery swapping at sea. It's an eclectic mix of news on your first one of the week. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily for Monday, 8th of June. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. And welcome along to two brand new patrons over the weekend via Patreon's website, which is how we do produce this podcast and how you fund it. A new producer of the podcast is Barry Wolf. Hello, Barry. And not the first time we've heard from Barry before on the podcast. Much appreciated. And a new executive producer getting his name in the show notes every single day. And a shout out on Sunday's podcast, as all exec producers and above do. That's you, David. David Moore is a new executive producer via Patreon. And if you want to check out what it's all about, you're very welcome to patreon.com, patreon.com/EV News Daily, but no pressure. It's totally optional. Of course, I'll make this show for anybody that wants to listen to it and learn about EVs and find out more about what's happening in this exciting world of electrification, where in Canada, Model Y reservation holders are seeing new fields to be filled in with their online accounts. If you go to your online account at tesla.com, all of a sudden, there's a few more details they would like from you in Canada. Tesla is asking for registrant type, as in people, individuals or company, an address, a trade-in detail on your previous car. Now, existing Tesla customers are most likely familiar with these steps, but for new customers, well, the process does inch them closer to their delivery date, which at the minute says June. For Canada. For payment method, you can either opt for cash or a loan arranged through Tesla, or even a self-arranged loan as well. The placeholder annual percentage rate, the APR, says 4.6%, but after submitting a credit application, that may change. This is all coming via the website iPhone for Canada. I'll pop a link in the show notes if you want to read more. Last week, we did find out that a retail location in West Vancouver confirmed the first Model Y deliveries in Canada are still on for June. Model Y starts at $75,990 Canadian dollars for the long-range all-wheel drive version. If you want standard range, you'll be waiting until next year. Via Reddit, I found somebody on Reddit said, "Yay, got the email I was waiting for today. Asked to upload driver's license, trade-in and payment options. He chose a Model Y Performance with the Performance upgrade. We are getting closer, fellow Canucks," says this person on Reddit. So congratulations to my Canadian listeners patiently waiting for their Model Y. We'll be patiently waiting a little bit longer over here because here's my bold prediction. Feel free to disagree. I don't think any Model Ys are going to be made either in California or China in right-hand drive versions to come to the UK before now. Gigafactory why can Berlin I be wrong with that? Well, they still have to make Model 3s for right-hand drive markets, Australia, UK, etc. So they still have to retool the factory and swap everything around. It's an easier car to make right-hand drive than some other cars, let's face it, but it's still a bit of work involved, right? So they are still going to have to do that for Model 3 and S and X. And so does that rule out the Model Y? Or if demand is strong enough in left-hand drive models, countries rather, will they only make those models? That's the dilemma for anyone in this country wanting a Model Y. Now, of course, in Europe, you can order. Here, UK, right-hand drive, we can't. You go to the Model Y page. There is a Model Y page, as there is a Cybertruck page and a Roadster page, but it's simply some pretty pictures, and you can sign up for Tesla's newsletter. You can go no further. So, that tells me it's a long way off. Last week, we found out some more details about Model Y in Berlin, according to another Reddit post. Again, careful, it's a Reddit post, but careful. Last week when I checked, the Tesla Model Y production on the page if you were ordering from Belgium, said 2021 delivery. Today I checked, and it changed to early 2022. Don't know if that's only for Belgium, but 2 years to wait is a very long time. Of course, it's a left-hand drive market. For Switzerland, it still says early 2021. There seems to be two places as well, like two different pages on the Model Y in Europe. Some saying 2021, some saying 2022. It all depends how Berlin progresses. If the Gigafactory is on target, if we're 12 months away from it next summer and they start producing cars, I don't think they'll start to make them in California for the European market. If it looks like it's going to get tied up in red tape and it's going to take longer than it took to build a Gigafactory in China, they may end up retooling maybe for some left-hand drive markets or just making some European cars in Fremont and sticking them on the boat and sending them through the Panama Canal and that long, long journey as it happens to take many weeks across the Atlantic. Okay, let's also mention that good bit of news from Canada that I mentioned. Plug-in electric car sales substantially improved in Canada during the first 3 months of 2020, according to the report provided by Electric Mobility Canada. Well, the total volume of all electric, so pure electric cars, what we call BEVs or BEVs, if you hear us. If you're new to the podcast and you hear someone say a BEV, that's what it is, pure battery electric vehicle. That compares to a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Some people call them PHEVs or PHEVs. And hydrogen fuel cell cars get lumped into these as well, although there were none of those in Canada sold. The volume was almost 12,000. That's about 50% more than year on year, about 8,000 this time last year for Q1, year on year for electric cars in Canada, says Inside EVs. Hard to improve from that point of view on Q2 because we know how the COVID-19 lockdown has been for every automotive market all around the world. But at least the plug-in market share is going to be high. Even if they're not selling many of them, the proportion will be higher. March brought a noticeable spike in terms of the Canadian EV market share. 5.6% is a record share, but the numbers are down, so that disproportionately makes the share look good. What are the most popular cars? You won't be surprised to hear. Number 1 in Canada is the Model 3, followed by the Chevrolet Bolt, and in third place, the Nissan Leaf. Moving on, and the order books have now opened for Audi's new plug-in version of their executive saloon, the A6. This is a beautiful car, and a lot of car as well, for a fair amount of money, £52,790 at least in the UK it starts at, but what an amazing car. I'm not sure too many people will have these as personal cars and write a cheque for the full amount and pay in cash. I can imagine a lot of these will be fleet cars, a lot of them will be at least company cars or some sort of salary sacrifice perhaps, and maybe the kind of car that you have for 2 or 3 years through your work, but still gorgeous. The Audi A6 50 Tfsi all-electric range of 34 miles per charge. What do you think? 34 miles enough for a modern-day plug-in hybrid car? Audi hopes company car drivers will be enticed by the 10% benefit-in-kind rate, according to Motor1.com. Only available in a saloon form at the moment, the Avant/Estate/Wagon. Oh man, I love fast Audis with an estate. It's just so practical. So good. Go for weekends away, stick the dogs in the back, get all your stuff in, your weekend camping gear, and they look sexy as hell as well. The car comes with a 2-litre petrol engine and an electric motor to create a 4-wheel drive system. 4-door, luxury, 4-wheel drive, 300 brake horsepower, 0 to 62 in 5.5 seconds. It's just an amazing machine for those that would have otherwise bought probably a full petrol or diesel and get a bit of electrification in their life. 34 miles, is that enough? And funnily enough, that's the question we were asking you on Question of the Week. This week, I want to know your answer to read out on Sunday. Stick around to the end of the show to hear the full question. Evo magazine is a magazine that in my past I used to subscribe to. The Evo magazine car of the year highlight for me back in the day when I used to have a few magazine subscriptions. I do a bit more online, but I still have a few mag subscriptions now. I do like to read things like Autosport magazine, love that, always subscribe. Love GP Racing, that is my Formula 1 fan. That is a few of my nice sort of sit down at the weekend with a printed magazine sort of luxury. But I used to have a few more mags drop through my letterbox, and Evo was one of them, so I'm a big fan. These days I read all their stuff online. Can an Evo car, they say, be powered by electricity? If you're not familiar, by the way, Evo is sort of a high-performance cars magazine. It's an argument that's been raging between enthusiasts, but whichever side of the argument you find yourself on, the industry has no choice but to go ahead and develop them, says evo.co.uk. The way Tesla launches from a standstill will churn your stomach, says Evo, but it's real real party trick is the way it responds with perfect linearity and imperceptible delay to movements of your right foot. Now, bearing in mind, Evo is all about fast supercars, or at least fast road cars, very desirable quick cars at different price points. But I wouldn't say, back in the day, boy racers, it wasn't that kind of thing, but it was certainly, it was more about sort of kind of loud and that sort of visceral experience of car driving. And kind of, this is that style of magazine. So I'm interested to see how a mag like Evo talks about electric cars. Well, they say that to assume it's all about straight lines is to do such a response a disservice. Think instead of accuracy, to which you can adjust your car's line mid-corner or over-rotate its rear tyres. Electrification means the end of being in the wrong gear, in a corner, or worse, the car selecting the wrong gear from one of the 7, 8, 9, 10 gears that automatic cars will choose for themselves these days. And that's without the potential offered by torque vectoring too, something electric motors can do with greater fidelity and intensity than any conglomeration of differentials and clutch packs. Had technology, says Evo, stopped at some arbitrary point in the past, we'd have been denied some amazing cars, and we'd be denied some amazing EVs. If we collectively decided now that internal combustion was all that mattered for the thrill of driving. There you go, thrill of driving, that's a better way to describe what they're all about. Amazing to see a magazine like Evo talk about electric cars so positively. You know what? There's a change underway that you and I are witnessing right now. Moving on, and let's talk about a couple of marine stories. The American shipbuilding company Vigor Fab has selected ABB as the hybrid electric propulsion and energy storage system provider for their new ferries, the largest US ferry system according to Green Car Congress. Well, the new Olympic class ferries will carry 144 cars or 1,500 passengers each and mark a new era for electric ferries, enabling significant reductions in greenhouse gases. They can operate fully on battery power, not all of the time for the whole crossing, but they can. They have capability to go into hybrid mode as well. The battery power can extend to zero emissions capabilities if you go down the supply chain, using renewables and hydroelectric to even power the ferries. Figures from the trade association Interferry indicate that ferries transport 2.1 billion passengers every year. 250 million vehicles every year. As numbers are increasing, the sector is changing to meet the targets of a 30% emissions reduction by 2025. And there is a special that I want to make on ABB, because what they're doing with electric propulsion in marine stuff is really interesting, because it's not a black or white thing with both with aviation but also marine. It's not a case of, well, do we just ditch all combustion and go purely electric? There's a more nuanced answer to that, and that is, again, when they're around population centres, what they can do now is move on to electric power to sort out some emissions, at least where people are living and kids are growing up. And no one's pretending that the marine sector is the same as aviation, the cleanest of the clean, but there's a lot going on that's very impressive. I want to make a show about ABB because they're doing some stuff that is fascinating, but of which I don't fully understand. So I want to get someone on from the company who I can ask, as usual, stupid questions to, and they will answer with their expert answers, as I did over the weekend. If you missed the show on Saturday, I asked my stupid questions to the insurance industry. It was Tom Clark from LV Insurance, and it was a fascinating insight into how that industry is changing with EVs. Well, a group of companies, including ING Bank and ENGIE and the Port of Rotterdam, have launched a new consortium, the Zero Emission Services Company, with a goal to develop zero emissions inland waterway shipping in the Netherlands. The idea is to develop a fully electric barge with swappable batteries. They can go up to 62 miles and then swap the battery pack for one that is fully charged. It says Inside EVs. It's a new way of thinking about moving things around on the waterways. The battery pack is going to be about 2 megawatt hours, and it would do between about 2 and 4 hours of work before you would come to a battery swap station on the side of the waterway and swap batteries. Now, it's not going to be quick. It takes a couple of hours work to swap the batteries because they're the size of shipping containers. But the cool thing about the concept is that it allows to keep the costs of the barges under control. You haven't got to have all of the energy that you need for the entire journey stored on a barge, which of course is heavy, batteries are heavy, but you can swap them along the way, actually quite affordably, and only have the amount of batteries on board the barge that you need to do the next bit of the journey, which of course leaves more for extra payload, which is where you make your money. Very, very smart. Final story today, and Enel X expanded its EV charging network to more than 30,000 public charging points, roughly a threefold increase from 10,500 already available. They kicked off their e-roaming connectivity with the Dutch operator of charging networks, Allego. And under the framework, it's a Hubject platform they're using now. I've done a Saturday special, maybe even 18 months ago, on Hubject. It allows Enel X to have their users, well, Juice Pass users, it's an app you can get for your phone called Juice Pass. You can fill up your EV without signing a new contract when you turn up to a charger, and you haven't got to start registering for new things. If you go to a charge point operated by Allego, Bosch and Energy on a network of 20,000 points in Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg and the Netherlands, it just makes it really, really easy to use. The way that we're going with chargers, it's baby steps, but I love this. We're in the right direction. I'd love it to happen tomorrow, but we're heading in the right direction. Allego's network is 15,000 chargers available via Hubject, over 1,000 of which are fast chargers and 200 are ultra fast, in other words, 175 kilowatts plus, all installed in Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, UK as well. And the Energy network's about 5,000 charging points, and they've got a load of the fast chargers coming as well. And any time that we can talk about this technology where you have one account, you have one app on your phone, you turn up and you just plug in the car and it just works, and you get billed on one account coming out of one card, just like, I don't know, everything else in life, like the Apple App Store, like that you've got to have your card registered on that, and then you get an app, and then at the end of the month you get your bill, and okay, I bought these things, or like anything else. Oh my goodness, EVs have been so slow to catch on to that way of thinking, but hopefully we're joining things up now. All right, here we go. Question of the week this week. I alluded to it earlier. How far do you think a plug-in hybrid needs to go on EV power only? How far does a plug-in hybrid car need to drive on purely EV power? Now, obviously you could say like a million miles, but it wouldn't be realistic. You could say, 100 miles, but then again, that's going to cost a lot more money. The battery pack's going to be very big. So a bit of trade-off on this one that requires a little bit of brain power to go into it. Interesting stuff, right? Let me know your thoughts. Now, if you want to get in contact, you can. hello@evnewsdaily.com is my email address, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. There are 802 previous shows in the archive, which you can get for free, all funded by the Patreon supporters. At evnewsdaily.com is the blog. Our premier partners of the show are Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for clean tech talent, Porsche of the Village, Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, and Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East. Thank you for all my supporters. You do make this show happen. If you can leave a little review on Apple Podcasts, makes a big difference to help grow the show. And if you can ever share this podcast with somebody, maybe on social media, LinkedIn, that'd be amazing as well. And then we can reach more people. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.